Mr. President, as this is the first time I'm taking the floor, please allow me to congratulate you and the United Kingdom on your leadership in organizing these intersessional meetings of the Convention on Cluster Munitions. You and your team of the ISU can count on our full support. Mr. President, the following statement is delivered on behalf of the United Nations, the Interagency Coordination Group on Mine Action, comprising the United Nations entities involved in mine action. Excellencies, the United Nations welcomes the commitment of the United Kingdom to strengthening diplomatic efforts to address the grave humanitarian consequences of cluster munitions. Distinguished delegates, less than 1 year ago, the states parties to this convention met in Geneva under the presidency of Ambassador Felix Baumann of Switzerland to take stock of the progress they and the convention had made over the preceding 5 years. In the Lausanne Action Plan, 110 states parties acknowledge that increased efforts are required to advance towards the essential objective of a world free of cluster munitions. Excellencies, the use of cluster munitions in recent and ongoing armed conflicts by states not party to this convention and their severe humanitarian impact, especially in populated areas, constitute a grave concern. Mr. President, universal adherence is now more important than ever. The world is watching with shock, horror, and grave concern the ongoing war in Ukraine. Very soon after the war had started, there were unconfirmed yet credible reports of cluster munition use that has led to civilian casualties and destroyed civilian infrastructure. This includes ground-launched cluster munitions fired from multiple launch rocket systems in populated areas. The use of these highly inaccurate systems that disperse multiple munitions and submunitions in over a wide area can have foreseeable indiscriminate effects when used in a populated area. The United Nations reiterates its call for an immediate end to the use of such weapons, underscoring that any intentional targeting of civilians or civilians' infrastructure is a violation of international humanitarian law. Mr. President, the United Nations echoes your call for universalization and encourages all states parties to engage in the advocacy required to achieve universalization. The United Nations also applauds the government of the United Kingdom for organizing, with the support of the Implementation Support Unit of the Convention on Cluster Munitions, the African Regional Universalization Workshop in March, and the governments of Nigeria and Switzerland for co-hosting it. The United Nations is already supporting states parties to implement their treaty obligations and remains ready to further support states to comply with the convention and encourages states to provide additional funding. Lastly, the United Nations particularly encourages those states that have taken the first important step of signing the convention to now reaffirm their determination to end the suffering caused by cluster munitions by ratifying the treaty without further delay. Thank you, Mr. President.